I'm going to keep it straightforward because that's what matters when you're trying to decide whether a monitor like the SmallHD Ultra 7 is worth the extra weight in your camera bag. A lot of people feel the hesitation that comes with adding a pricey on-camera screen. Will it really make focusing easier? Will it survive a day on set? And will it justify the cost compared to just using the camera's built-in LCD? Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What I'm aiming to do here is walk through the actual day-to-day experience so you can judge the real value, real use, and whether it fits the way you shoot. First off, the biggest promise SmallHD makes is that you'll finally have a display bright enough to read in full sunlight. At 2300 nits, the Ultra 7 does exactly that. I tried it on a sunny rooftop shoot with a cinema-grade camera, and the image stayed crisp without any washed-out colors. That daylight visibility means you can set your focus and exposure without hunting for a shade or relying on a handheld external monitor that may dim in direct sun. For documentary shooters, or anyone who spends a lot of time outdoors, that alone can shave minutes off every setup. But brightness is only half the story. The real test for an on-camera monitor is whether it actually helps you lock focus faster. The Ultra 7 runs SmallHD's PageOS, which is a touch-driven interface that lets you swipe between focus peaking, false color, and waveform overlays without digging through a camera's menu. In practice, I found the transition almost instantaneous. When I was tracking a moving subject with a 24mm lens, the focus peaking overlay appeared as soon as I tapped the screen, and the high-contrast edges made it clear whether the subject was front or back focused. That kind of confidence can be a game-changer for run-and-gun shooting where you don't have time to double-check focus on the camera's tiny viewfinder. Low-light performance is another area where the Ultra 7 earns its keep. The 10-bit color processing retains detail and shadows that a typical 7-inch LCD would crush. I shot a concert scene under stage lighting that hovered around 3 electron volts, and the monitor displayed a smooth gradient from deep blacks to the brightest highlights without banding. The look-around camera control, which lets you pan the sensor's view via the touchscreen, helped me find the sweet spot where the exposure meter was reading the most usable part of the frame. It's not a replacement for a dedicated low-light monitor, but the brightness combined with the 10-bit panel makes the Ultra 7 usable in conditions where many other monitors would become too dim to read. Stabilization is not a feature of the monitor itself, but its weight and mounting options affect how the camera balances. The Ultra 7 is heavier than a standard LCD screen, at about 500 grams, and that extra mass can shift the center of gravity when you're using a handheld rig. I paired it with a small cage and a battery grip. The setup felt solid, but you do lose a bit of handheld maneuverability compared to a lighter monitor. If you rely heavily on handheld gimbal work, you might need to offset that weight with a counterbalance or accept a slightly less fluid motion. Now about the I/O. SmallHD gave this monitor a fairly standard set of connections: HDMI, SDI, and a 3-pin type power input. The HDMI input worked flawlessly with my mirrorless camera, and the SDI port came in handy when I dropped a cinema camera into the mix. One practical strength here is that you can run the monitor off the same battery you're already using for the camera, which means fewer cables and a cleaner rig. The downside is that the power draw is noticeable. Running the Ultra 7 at full brightness drains a standard mount battery about 20% faster than a camera without an external monitor. If you're shooting all day on a single battery, you'll want a larger capacity or a secondary power source. Who should actually consider buying the SmallHD Ultra 7? If you're a professional or serious indie creator who works in bright environments, think outdoor documentaries, weddings, or sports, this monitor gives you that daylight legibility that most built-in screens can't match. It's also a solid choice for anyone who relies on focus peaking and false color to nail critical focus, especially when you're using lenses with shallow depth of field. The durability rating is worth mentioning. The housing is aluminum and the screen is protected by a hard coating, so it survives the occasional bump or the occasional rain splash without showing any distress. For a small crew that needs to move fast, that ruggedness can be a real confidence boost. On the other hand, if you're a beginner just learning the ropes with a DSLR or a compact mirrorless that already has a bright, usable screen, the Ultra 7 might feel like overkill. The price point is noticeably higher than entry-level monitors, and the added weight can be a learning curve for someone still mastering balance on a gimbal. Also, If your primary shooting scenario is low-light interiors where you already use a high-gain camera sensor, you